We're constantly hearing about this crippling global tech talent shortage, right? But let's dive into this explainer where we unpack a really fascinating data study by Dipesh Khadgi. It uncovers some hidden truths about the IT intern hiring process in the booming Kathmandu Valley. And honestly, the reality of what actually gets you hired there is, well, it's pretty surprising.
Get this. Every single year, a massive wave of 9,000 IT graduates enters the Nepalese workforce. 9,000! They're all eager, ready to kickstart their professional careers. That is just a huge influx of fresh ambition. And since about 90% of the nation's IT jobs are concentrated right there in the Kathmandu Valley, you'd naturally think these companies have their absolute pick of the litter, wouldn't you?
But here's where we hit a startling paradox. Despite this massive flood of available talent, a whopping 64.2% of entry-level employees are actually rated as below average in competence by local IT companies. Seriously, think about that for a second. More than 6 out of every 10 new hires walk through the front door and almost immediately fall completely short of employer expectations.
So this creates a massive friction point. We've got a booming industry here that's exporting over $500 million, specifically $515 million back in 2022. Yet companies are literally starving for work-ready talent. Because of this massive skills gap, local firms are forced to take on this huge training burden. They're often spending 3 to 6 agonizing months just getting a new intern up to speed before they can even be productive. I mean, that is a huge financial and time drain.
So what exactly is going wrong here? Why aren't these 9,000 graduates fitting the bill? Well, let's start our investigation by looking at what I like to call the decoys. Basically, what hiring managers explicitly claim they prioritize when they're evaluating candidates. When surveyed, these managers give absolutely massive importance scores to soft skills. On a 5-point scale, teamwork scores an impressive 4.11, and communication hits 4.03. Meanwhile, actual academic marks, they sit way lower down their list of stated priorities at 3.32. You hear that and you'd naturally think your resume needs to be entirely focused on how well you play with others, right?
And when we drill down into the technical side, it brilliantly illustrates their mindset. Managers actually prefer an intern's ability to learn quickly, which scored a 3.92, way over having strong pre-existing coding skills right out of the gate, which only scored a 3.02. Because tech changes so incredibly fast, employers are just begging for adaptable learners. They don't want rigid experts, they want people who can pivot.
And here's a real surprise. When it comes to communication, it's not actually about writing perfect code documentation. No, positive body language, things like eye contact and posture, is the single highest rated trait employers look for. It hits a 4.21. They're looking for candidates who naturally project confidence and can easily explain complex technical ideas to their peers.
But hold on, here is the absolutely crucial question. Do these highly rated soft skills actually drive the final hiring decision when a manager is staring at a literal mountain of resumes? It's super easy to say you want a great communicator, but what actually triggers them to hand over an employment contract? Well, let's look at the math.
Okay, here is the data-driven twist. When researchers ran a regression analysis to see what actually predicts a hiring decision, the results flipped entirely. Academic specialization and marks absolutely dominate. They have high correlation scores of 0.544 and 0.463. And teamwork, that trait they supposedly wanted more than anything else, it drops straight to the bottom when predicting who actually gets the job.
This creates what the data calls the teamwork paradox. Managers desperately want teamwork, for sure, because it's essential for their agile environments. But it is not the actual filter they use to make their hiring choices. Soft skills are treated as a baseline expectation, not the shiny differentiator that's going to get your resume pulled from the pile.
To understand why this happens, we have to look to a brilliant concept called signaling theory. It essentially explains how managers navigate hiring in a high-volume, highly uncertain job market. Since they obviously can't magically see your work ethic or soft skills before hiring you, they are forced to rely on observable credentials as trust signals to assess your hidden potential.
Because recruiters simply cannot test everyone's soft skills deeply during that initial screening phase, they rely heavily on academic records. It's a shortcut. When you have 9,000 graduates applying for just a handful of roles, a recruiter literally does not have the time to check everyone's eye contact. They need an immediate, undeniable trust signal to filter out thousands of applications.
And the data shows exactly how they use that shortcut. High, steady marks act as proof of a candidate's discipline and persistence. It basically proves to a hiring manager that the student can handle structured, professional workloads over a long period. They prefer steady grades over fluctuating ones because, at the end of the day, consistency is the ultimate signal of reliability.
Choosing a clear lane is also a massive signal. Nearly 40% of firms in the Kathmandu Valley specifically hunt for a software engineering specialization to ensure immediate alignment with their projects. Having a clear focus tells the employer, hey, I've already committed to a niche, which instantly reduces their perceived risk and cuts down on that training time we talked about earlier.
Now, this heavy reliance on academic trust signals, it's born out of pure necessity. Why? Because a staggering 74.1% of IT firms feel academic institutions just aren't producing globally competitive, ready-to-work graduates. That is a massive disconnect. This deep lack of trust in the baseline education system forces managers to rely on outstanding academic metrics just to hedge their bets.
So, we've moved past what employers say, and we know what the math proves they actually do. Let's move forward and see how this builds into an actionable, data-backed playbook for any IT graduate trying to crack the hiring code and break into the market.
To succeed, the data shows a clear path. First up, you have to pick a clear specialization. Don't be a generalist. Second, you must maintain steady academic grades. This is the crucial trust signal that actually gets you past the resume screening phase. And third, once you finally secure the interview, that's when you seal the deal with perfect body language and clear communication.
Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought to consider. We hear constantly about the global rise of skills-based hiring, where portfolios are supposedly replacing degrees. But looking at this data, you have to wonder, despite all that hype, is skills-based hiring really just a myth when thousands of resumes are on the line and recruiters need a quick way to filter the noise? It's a fascinating reality check on how the modern tech industry actually operates.